Okay. In the real world, the PBO has just about an hour to go in the oven, so now's around the time to start making tortillas. And you can buy them, but when I make these are as good as any store-bought that I've gotten. I've yet to run across one that's just as good, or if not, if just that's as good as this. I mean, you can buy like the whatever. If you can find a place that makes them fresh, more power to you. But this is, it's easy enough that you have your own. I don't know how else to put it. Anyway, 2.5 cups flour. It is all-purpose, unbleached. It's the same stuff I use on my sourdough. Real world, I am a couple days I'll be making a loaf of sourdough, so I'll be using the rest of this. And I got some venison sausage from my boss, so I'll be making, I gotta make some sourdough so I can make a nice breakfast for it. This, 2.5 cups of all-purpose unbleached flour, 1 whole stick of butter melted. You don't have to melt it, I guess, but then you have to like break it down. When I do it like this, wash your hands. Don't be that weirdo that doesn't wash his hands. I mean, you can, but then you're just some stupid weirdo that nobody likes. I'm already the stupid weirdo that nobody likes, but at least I wash my hands. So, mix this up. This is the way I like to do it first. Make sure my flour and butter are thoroughly mixed. So it's going to look kind of like that. It's not too, it should clump up a lot because of the butter. Now I make it a point, because somebody said when I made the joke of do you exist if you don't put it on the internet. Now I make it a point to say it almost every time I can. So I have a cup of water. I warmed it. It's still steaming a little bit. I warmed this water up. That might be a little too hot. That's fine. It'll cool off because this is room temperature. I'll put about half of this water in to start with. And then we'll work our way up. Today, it's warm. It's woo. It is the 16th of December, and it is 79 degrees outside. Whoopee. Not what I would want in the December. It's almost ready. So I bring up the temperature because it's warm and it's muggy. I'm gonna put in like 2 tablespoons of water. I think that might be it. This heat and humidity, it feels like early April outside, even though it's December. This heat and humidity does affect the dough. It's a bit warm in here, which is not that big of a deal. We're supposed to get a cold front later this week, who knows. So now our dough is close to consistency, and this is how much water is left, about 1/3 of a cup, to tell you how much water I actually used out of a cup. Feels pretty good already. The plan is to make about a dozen. Actually, let me take that back. The plan is to make 10, because I plan on making them what is that, around 8-9 inches in diameter. I like them a little bit bigger because I'm going to be making tacos out of it with my pibil. So the plan is to make about 10, and this dough is almost ready. It came together pretty nicely today. It's an exact science, but then you kind of have to dial into it. You have to figure out how you want it done or how to do it. And I still haven't done this enough. I don't have the repetition to really tell you exactly what to do, but this isn't a tutorial anyway, so you shouldn't be coming here for the tutorial. I mentioned whose recipe I'm using, and I forget the name now, but this dough feels really nice. It's scratchy, it doesn't look that great right now, but it's not supposed to. It's not a big deal. We're just making sure everything's mixed together, and I almost forgot. I put about a teaspoon of salt, maybe a teaspoon and a half to taste. If you don't put the salt in, this doesn't taste like anything, because unless you use salted butter, I guess. I guess you could. I've never used salted butter. I've only ever done it with unsalted. So I almost forgot to put the salt in. Wouldn't be the first time I almost forgotten. I remember I made blueberry muffins, and I was almost done, ready to put them in the pan and cook them, and I almost forgot to put the sugar in. That would have been really stupid. But I'm just looking at the time on my. So we're like 7 minutes in, and I'm just integrating this salt. I want to make sure the salt is dissolved and integrated throughout the dough, because otherwise there's no flavor. Whenever I go somewhere and they have good tortillas, they're good. They're never better than homemade, but they're always as good as homemade, if that makes any sense. So I put my tortillas up against anybody's, especially any restaurant, especially if you go to somewhere that's cheap and has cheap tortillas. I'm in Houston. You should never be satisfied by cheap tortillas. When you can go to the store and get quality ones, you can go to H-E-B, I should say. You should go to H-E-B and get quality ones. And then you can find a place that makes them. It's even better. There's places where they have the machines and everything, and they're throwing them out. Those usually make really good ones, which there's quite a few here in Houston, thankfully. So it's like a minute and a half of kneading this to make sure. See, I don't need any more of this water. The water was hotter than I normally use, but I knew the flour was cold-ish. It was like 70 degrees, because that's the temperature of the room right now. So hot water, that water is probably about 115 or so. Maybe the water should be a little bit hotter, because that really melded this thing together really nicely. So we have our dough. All right. Looks great, feels great. So there we go. What I like to do, this is wet. I just wiped this down and cleaned it and made sure there's nothing stuck on there. Dry that off. Put this on the counter. Flip this bowl to cover it. Let this rest, and we'll be back in about a half hour. Oh. Let me wash my hands real quick. Always wash your hands, people. It's crazy to watch people just be dirty. I didn't understand it. There's plenty of resources to do it, and then they don't. And then there's people that don't have resources It's just, I don't get it. It just doesn't make any sense. Wash your hands. Wash your hands, people. Anyway, we got our dough here. It's been a half hour. Give it a nice rest. See how it's laid down a little bit? Feels good. Squish it down. It's not gonna rise or anything. There's not really any. It'll rest, but it won't rise because there's no yeast or anything in it. If you let it go long enough, I think it will, but I'm not sure. I've never let it go that long. So we're gonna make, what is that, like a golf ball? I'm gonna try to make 10 of these. Yeah, it's about the size of a golf ball, more or less. Well, that was easy. 3, 6, 9, 10. 10 is my goal. I think this is a good size. It'll probably make a 6 to 8 inch diameter tortilla, which is what I want. I don't need that many. I only need about 6. But then, I wonder, I've never tried to modify the recipe for this stuff, but it should be okay. So, I'm gonna let this bench rest for another 10 minutes. Or for 10 minutes, I should say. So let this sit for 10 minutes, let them rest. This is key. When they're rested, you're able to spread them out with your rolling pin. And now I need to find my rolling pin. I realize I don't know where it is. So I'll be doing that over 10 minutes and we'll be back. Okay, we got our stuff here. They're rested. Resting the second time is very important. It needs that time to relax. And when you relax it like this, it'll stay in whatever shape you put it, which is very important because we're trying to make it into a disc. I just do it with my fingers like this to start out with. Get it covered in flour, flip it, cover it again. Get that disc going. The disc looks okay and feels all right, and it should just stay like that. If it's not staying like that, it needs longer to rest. But by this point, with that 30-minute rest and then the 10-minute bench rest like this, it should be okay. But for the most part, you have to, I mean, this is just trial and error. Like, this is like the 4th or 5th time I made tortillas this year. Not as much as I'd like, Ideally, I would be doing this like once a week. But you know, I don't have that kind of time. I actually have like a job and things I have to do, other responsibilities, and this is lower on the responsibility. On the responsibility list, I should say. So get it to a circle and then just start working it out from the center. I just go around in a circle, flattening it out as much as possible. So let me make 4. Just kind of use the fat, not the fat, the thick part of your hand. Maybe it's fat on you, I don't know you. Use the thick part of your hand and just like squeak it out to make a circle. So then you have this. All right, this looks nice. So there you go. Is the pan hot enough yet? Almost. So this, when you make it like this, what should happen is you should roll it out, and that's it. It shouldn't start to shrink back in. If it starts to shrink back in, that means it's not rested enough. You got to give it another 5, maybe even 10 minutes. Make sure it stays that way, because it needs to, you know, we're going to cook with it, right? We're going to cook it, right? Or I guess you'd call that cooking. I don't know what you call that. So now I think the pan is hot enough. Let's get a closer look. Let me move this camera. So this pan is nice and hot. I've been letting it heat up for about 5 minutes. See some smoke coming off it. I don't know if that catches on camera. This needs to be searing hot because this needs to go quick. Needs to be on, and I'd say a minute, but maybe 90 seconds. What we're looking for is right there. They're coming up perfect. Let's take a look and make sure we're capturing it on camera. See all these little bubbles coming up? That's exactly what we want. So while I'm waiting on that, let me start rolling out another one. The key is thin and wide. That way you can stick a nice amount of meat in this case RP veal. Look at that, perfect. All right, our pan is hot enough so we can back it off to about medium, about half, and let that sit for another 30 seconds. Okay, that's done. This is the part where I always say 2 people would be nice to do this part. One person strictly focusing on baking or cooking and the other person on rolling. So the other person can get all of them set and ready, and then one person can just focus on getting the dough, getting the tortillas in shape. And by in shape, I mean calisthenics and weight training and things of that nature. Go for a nice walk in the morning. Anyway, how are we looking? Almost there. See, once you get the pan hot enough, it's just a matter of timing. See, like this, I kind of have to time it out a little bit. See, I have two that are ready to go for the pan, and then one I'm shaping in the flour, but now I got to stop, turn around. See this, flip it. That's perfect. That's about as good as it gets right there. The shape isn't 100% ideal, obviously, but I won't tell if you don't tell, huh? We're on record, right? Okay. I've done this enough that sometimes I forget to hit record, or sometimes the audio doesn't work. But now I have this new mic, and the new mic works pretty well so far. I've got under 10 minutes to go for my pork, so I'm gonna have to stop this whole thing in a minute and start focusing on getting the pork out of the oven and checked out, make sure everything's looking okay. I'm pretty sure it smells right, so if it smells good, it's probably good. Oh, there goes my timer. My timer's done. In the real world, my pubille is ready. I'm gonna take it out and put it here. And while we wait for this tortilla to cook, I still have, I've only done 2 of 10, so I still got 8 more to go. This being number 3. So, hold on. Let's take this out and let's take a look. Ooh, that smells right. Ooh, they smell nice. It looks nice, look at that. Comes out great. Straightforward recipe, nothing fancy. You can fancy it up if you want, but I wouldn't. So, my pork is done. I have something to eat my pork in. I'm gonna eat.